Good evening, grade 9. So I'm doing this video to talk about the process of photosynthesis. So if I must just begin my lesson. So we are going to talk about the process of photosynthesis. Now, in the previous lesson, we talked about how organisms in the world are, or organisms in general, are divided into two categories. There are heterotrophs and autotrophs. Now, I want you for a minute to pause this video and think about the differences between the two and how they obtain their energy. All organisms require energy to sustain all the living processes that they undergo. So, what is the difference between the two? So, pause this video for a second and just think about the differences between the two. Alright, so let's continue. So autotrophs are organisms with the ability to make their own food or the energy, and heterotrophs rely on other organisms, particularly autotrophs, to obtain energy or food. Now, in these next two videos, we're going to talk about two important processes, okay? One is called cellular respiration. Actually, let's start. The first one is called photosynthesis. And the other one is called cellular respiration. Clear? So, if we go back, so this is photosystem 2. This is electron transport chain. This is another photosystem, but it's called photosystem 1. Okay, and here you have ATP synthase. Alright, ATP synthase is an enzyme. ATP synthase is an enzyme responsible for making ATP. SE. Alright, so this is what the structure of the thylakoid looks like. The thylakoid membrane. You have three structures. You have photosystem 2, you have electron transport chain, and then you have photosystem 1, and then you have ATP synthase, which is an enzyme responsible for the production of ATP. Now, what you need to know in the light dependent, all right, sunlight light-dependent reaction starts with sunlight hitting the photosystem 2. Okay, inside the photosystem 2 you have chlorophyll and you have a low energy electron. Okay, now what happens is that when sunlight first hits the photosystem 2, this electron will become excited. It will gain energy. This energy is transferred from the chlorophyll which absorbed the sunlight, and this electron will go and travel through the ETC, or the electron transport chain, into the other protein known as photosystem 1. Alright, so it will go through here, here, and then here. Okay, now you will notice that the electron lost its energy. Okay, now this is not a good thing for the photosystem 1, because the photosystem 1 still requires that this electron remain excited. So what happens is that again the sunlight will hit the photosystem 1. This electron will become excited and it will gain energy. Now this electron is needed later on in the light independent reaction. Therefore, it needs to be transferred to the light independent reaction. Who will do this job? There's an electron carrier. So if I draw the photosystem 1 PS1 here again, here you have an electron that's excited and is ready to go. You will end up with something known as electron carrier. Okay, now this electron carrier is NADP plus. Okay, it's plus because it requires an electron. Okay, so this electron carrier will come and carry the electron, and it will become NADPH. Okay, so this is the first product from the light dependent reaction. The first product is NADPH. Okay, remember that the first product is NADPH. Then we move on again back to the photosystem 2. Alright, now I want to remind you of one thing. Okay, when the electron was excited and it was moving from photosystem 2 photosystem 2 to the ETC to the photosystem 1, we had actually, so now you have loads of H plus ions. And remember, what do we know about transport across membrane? When you have high concentration and low concentration and high okay, remember there's more hydrogen ions here in the thylakoid membrane in the inside, like here, than here, which is the stroma. Okay, now what happens? All right, now these hydrogen ions will start moving. All right, they want to go to the place where there's low concentration. Now they cannot go through the membrane easily, because remember, ions need protein channels or gates to go through. They cannot go through the normal membrane. So here we have the ATP synthase, which acts as a protein channel. When the hydrogens start to leave through the ATP synthase, what happens is that at that moment, ATP synthase is making ATP. How? Remember, ATP is made up from adenosine diphosphate, which means 2 phosphates, and you add 1 high energy phosphate to make ATP. Okay, this is what ATP synthase does. Okay, now as you can see, what's happening now, that as the hydrogens move, you will end up with ATP, which comes to the idea that the light dependent photosynthesis gives us two things, two products. The first product was the NADPH, and the second product that we just made now was ATP. All right, clear? Let's quickly remind ourselves of three things. Okay, light dependent needs sunlight. You need sunlight. It happens in the thylakoid membrane. And it produces the following. It produces ATP, which is an energy molecule, plus NADPH. Okay? In the light dependent, we release oxygen. All right? So remember these things. Now let's move on to the light independent. Right, so we start the carbon cycle with six carbons. Okay, what you need to know in cycle reactions, you start with the same thing and you finish with the same thing. So now we have six pieces of 6 carbon sugars. All right, now what you need to know about Calvin cycle is that you will start with one thing and you will finish with the same thing. Now, these 6 pieces of 6 carbon are further divided. So each carbon will be divided into 2. All right. So what does that mean? If you have each 6 carbon splitting into 3 carbon, all right. So if you have each one of them splitting into 3 carbons, what does that mean? That you will multiply 6 times 2 to give us 12 3 carbons. Okay? Does that make sense? So 6 of them, each one of them will be divided into 2. So 6 times 2 will give us 12 3 carbons. Now, so you have 12 3 carbons, and these then go around in a cycle to give us a 6 carbon again. All right. Now at some point, 2 of these 12s are taken. So you have 12 here. In this part of the cycle, you end